Hello, thank you for joining us for today's video premiere by Steph Richards and Andrew Munsey. I'm Jeff Arnell, the Executive Director of Black Mountain College Museum and Art Center, and this program is part of our Museum from Home initiative, an online platform that includes digital exhibitions, lectures, podcasts, and performances. Museum from Home has allowed us to not only stay connected with our local community, but stay connected with friends around the country and friends around the world. Thank you to everyone who supported our work during these difficult times. Your generosity has allowed us to offer our online programs free of charge. If you're in a position to help, please consider making a donation or becoming a museum member. Visit us at blackmountaincollege.org. We are so thrilled to share this video premiere of Homeostasis, a new piece for sonic conversations with difficult objects by Steph Richards and Andrew Munsey. Andrew Munsey is a sound engineer, musician, creative collaborator who works across the fields of contemporary and experimental music, cinema, and television. Trumpet player and composer Steph Richards explores the space between new music, improvisation, and performance art. Her latest record, Supersets on Northern Spy, is scheduled for release later this month. Steph's music is phenomenal, and I would encourage everyone to explore her work and her many collaborations online. We're so grateful that Steph and Andrew have shared this work with us. Thank you so much. Please stick around for a conversation with Steph after the premiere. And thanks again for tuning in. Here's Homeostasis by Steph Richards and Andrew Munsey. Hi, Steph.
Hi, Jeff.
That was fantastic. Thank you for being here and thank you for sharing that with us.
Absolutely. That was my absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. What and who and your playing partner is Andrew?
My husband, Andrew Munsey. Yep.
Yeah,
Luckily, we're quarantining together, so it was nice to have a duo partner for the project.
that's amazing. And it was so great to see y'all in action. And I wonder if you could help us um, find our way, starting with the title, um, Homeostasis. And it seems so relevant to our world right now. And how did you come upon this idea or the structure, or just how does it relate to what we just witnessed?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I thought to put this piece together. I think we can't ignore the space that we're living in as musicians and what's happening right now around us in the world, and so maybe this title is a little bit more obvious than other works, but essentially this piece is about um, sort of conversing and acknowledging and trying to thrive in our environment, and try to find a place of homeostasis. I'm really doing a lot of research into Pauline Oliveros's deep listening,
Mhm.
um, her beautiful theories and scores, and I've really been thinking a lot about her concepts of this kind of idea of global thinking, where we're hearing beyond simply our immediate locations, and we're actually trying to listen and hear, you know, outside of my house. I'm trying to listen to what's happening in the street. I'm trying to hear what's happening um, musically, politically, what's happening in the streets here in San Diego, et cetera, et cetera. And you can just kind of keep growing your ears. And so, yeah, this piece is about listening. It's about acknowledging the space around where my husband and I are, literally at home. And then also, the other half of this piece is we both, I tasked my husband to both of us to kind of find objects that we might not sort of necessarily think to play with. So we looked around our house and found odds and ends, some toys, some kitchen, utensils, and thought, how can we converse and make music with these objects? And that's essentially what the piece is. It was structured in two halves. The first half is more of an open conversation and listening to the space around us. And then as the piece progresses, we start to move more towards the found objects.
That's amazing. And it's so wonderful to hear you mention Pauline Oliveros, and what a big part she's been in all of our lives, and how it, her thinking and teachings, appear and you could hear it in your music. So that's really wonderful to hear about that research and you thinking about that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So when you have this idea, you and Andrew are kind of settling on, the structure, creating this, maybe the systems within that, are parts of this improvised, or parts of it scored out, outside of, say, choices of instrumentation? How, say, for this piece in particular, what was the process like as far as mapping out the piece itself?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we had a small amount of physical choreography. We kind of decided to place different stations in two different locations, most the piece is really, really open and improvised. I would say it's almost all improvised, except for the sort of preset structures of which objects we're working with, where they're placed, and then also there's this. It's actually a pretty subtle moment, but there's this coffee percolator that I plug in right at the beginning, and it provides this kind of subtle energy and vibration that happens throughout the piece for about I don't know, probably the first maybe 8 minutes or so. It's just this growing sort of energy, and maybe even turbulence, and that was one of the sort of I guess time-based structures that we put in the piece, trying to consider that, like, when the percolator crescendos, that would be a musical moment for us, in whatever way that we want to interpret what that could be, that would be, a location that we would consider. Yeah. And then aside from that, we had a tape echo option that we could employ every now and then. So when we were doing an effect or a sound that we thought might do well to have a longer presence, we could use that as we wanted. But the thing is, it was across the room, so we had to sort of choose it wisely.
Yeah, and I think that idea of the different kind of sound worlds or instruments, the placement and the movement, what we saw in the video appears, and you even mention it in writing about your work. This idea of sight, sound, and movement is so intriguing to see how those things connect. And movement, internal movement as a trumpet player, but then also as an ensemble player and also as a composer. I would love if you could talk a little bit more about how movement kind of connects to those things.
Absolutely, sure, yeah. I think as you were talking, I was just thinking about how sometimes when I'm composing, I like to look at dancers and I try to articulate rhythmically what I'm seeing, because I think that it is probably impossible to actually ever write it down. But there's so much complexity and so much beauty, and in that sort of wordless space that dance can create, in terms of rhythm and emotion, and all the other things. But as a composer, I think that there's a lot that I can um, that I can learn and be inspired by working with dancers. But also, there's the other side as a musician and a performer. I think that choreography is totally inherent into what we do, whether we think about it or not. I play the trumpet, but I don't just simply play out of the horn. The music is coming out of my body in so many ways, and I'm listening with my body, not just with my ears, but my skin is listening. My skin is hearing, the music. And so, all this goes to say that, performing digitally is there's information that can be lost. And there's the magic of a live performance. There's just so much information that we can get from actual vibrations in the air, and movement, and sound. So, and also, kind of along that, I also think that, like, as I mentioned, that we hear with our skins, and with our bodies. And I think that there's so many other elements of a musical performance that affect how we feel about it. Coming back to Pauline's, thinking about deep listening and considering that the space might be equal to the influence of the musical output. I'm working right now on a project. It's coming out pretty soon, where I was working with sense and how smell and can affect how we feel and how we hear music. But I really think, temperature is a huge aspect of how we feel, when we're in a concert hall or in a club. There's so many elements that, like, when we're trying to define what music is, I think it's much more beyond the sound, and it's completely all in our physical bodies.
Yeah, and I mean, I completely agree, and it depends, as a listener, or as a performer, those situations, like you said, a concert hall or any other type of playing situation, playing outside. You see a lot of street musicians these days, and taking music out, and that becomes something really different. But then now you've taken this this work and you've put it, we've approximated it, or we've created it for this platform online, which is another whole part of your practice and Andrew's practice of filmmaking, or how does time and time-based kind of work connect to each other, and because we really are watching a film of a performance, and that it's one step away, and continue. It's archived, and so we'll continue to listen to it like a record. And when you're creating it, do you and Andrew have that in mind as well, that the kind of final version of, say, this piece is going to exist on this platform?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely thought about well, especially since the piece is largely improvised, how can this feel live? How can it feel intimate, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, we tried to, actually, whether it was on purpose or not, it's a pretty humble looking video. It's just, it's filmed in our studio garage, but hoping that there's a closeness and an intimacy in seeing, where our home really is. This is our house. This isn't a stage with lights and all this. I'm on a big platform and it can make me look really impressive, but actually these are two people in their home making music. And so, yeah, when we were trying to plan the shot, we were obviously we were trying to make it look nice and clean, but also we were trying to help it feel close and real, that this is what it really looks like, and this is us making art in our home.
Yeah, and I would say that, in the various stations, even when you're sitting in any seat in a, say, concert hall or a club, you have this kind of view of what is happening, what is staged. And so you have multiple cameras and you have lighting, but it's also really amazing to think about this is a workspace. This is a place where you're practicing your craft day in and day out. And, and then, but then it becomes, it's magical. And I think in a way that is also because you're inviting us into your home. And I think that's something really, one of those moments or silver linings that of what, the world is upside down right now, but we're able to kind of share with each other these moments.
Absolutely. Yep. I think this is, I think that from here on in, the way we think about how we translate our art and why and with whom, these are, it's going to influence things for forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are really incredible times.
Because of listening to a lot of your playing and your music lately, I've been wondering about time and kind of your approach in all of these different styles. Say you mentioned new music or improvisation or performance art. This time and duration and how what is your, and I think it's evolving probably practice for or evolving thinking for musicians, but what are your current thoughts on time and how it relates to your performance practice?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a great winter, like looking at our daily lives now, everything is a lot slower. There's a lot less happening in our day, right? Um, and in some ways, maybe it can even feel a little bit more stressful. I don't know if everyone's a little different. For me, that's, there's in some ways less happening in my world. I'm not traveling, but in some ways it actually feels like I'm busier than I've ever been. Um, Even though things are sort of in slow motion. And it makes me think about in music how, time, um, it's very much about context, actually, um, of what are the other elements of complexity uh, that help this feeling of either, velocity of things moving forward and being super active, and then or also helping things feel like, oh, this is long, this is taking a long time, and it's completely contextual, I think. um, More doesn't necessarily mean faster or busier. It's all about how we contextualize it. So but time, also for me as a musician, as an improviser, I it's one of the most important things of my practice, although it's the hardest to um, yeah, to try to articulate. But playing in time, being able to groove, playing deeply in time, is my goal. Someday, hopefully, I'll get there. um, but I think that the musicians that have a beautiful sense of time and a really deep sense of groove are the ones I'm really attracted to, and it's a timeless sound. It can be, like there's a classical Baroque trumpet player who has amazing time and has really inspired me, and he grooves so hard, in the way that he plays. So anyhow, that's a little bit circuitous. Like I sort of answered sort of two ways of thinking of time, but it's a really important thing, part of my own practice for sure.
Yeah, and you could, again, I think that comes out loud and clear in the pacing and breath again, and of your instrument, but then also, as you were saying, how does something long be short and something short be long, and and all the different various combinations. But yeah, that's interesting. I think that is a little bit of a tangent of mine, because we have time has become so weird for all of us. It was just March, and now we're in October, and somehow, a lot has happened and very little has happened. But I think if we go down to say, a 20-minute piece, how that can almost seem like also like a second or a few seconds
Mm-hmm.
or a few hours. It becomes very subjective, I guess.
Yeah, and I think the pacing of this piece, there's a lot of space and there's a lot of silence and slowness about it, which is actually pretty difficult for me. But that was one of the things that Andrew and I discussed ahead of time. You know, like how slowly can we go about these sounds? Um, how could we basically how can we let some of these sounds really resonate? So yeah, you know, I'll depends. Everyone, you know, everyone has their own opinion of how it'll feel, but it might feel really, really slow and long. Hopefully not in a bad way, but yeah, that was definitely something we really tried to consider. Though, is how could we make this meditative and spacious?
So thank you, Steph, so much for joining us, and we will see you soon.
Yeah, I hope so. Thanks so much, Jeff.
Thanks, Steph.